Demeo originally emerged as an indie hit focused on virtual reality, bringing players an immersive, cooperative tabletop RPG experience with turn-based and card-based gameplay. The Resolution Games team proved quite dedicated to creating a friendly atmosphere and a product that translated the magic of traditional RPG sessions into VR, which is rare and valuable in modern games. The transition from the original proposal to the official Dungeons & Dragons universe with Battlemarked seems like a natural and ambitious step, expanding the game's reach to new audiences who want something more accessible and faster, without sacrificing the feeling of collective strategy and cooperation. The collaboration with Wizards of the Coast to bring the D&D universe to the Demeo structure was a strategic move. With Battlemarked, the game lost the traditional dungeon master and focused completely on social strategy and group decision-making. This choice directly impacts the type of experience offered. It's not a deep narrative RPG with old-fashioned dice rolling, but rather a game that emphasizes tactical combat and synergy between players, which is noticeable in the demo. This approach may not please all the more traditional D&D fans, but it creates a noticeably more fluid and immediate experience for faster game sessions. When playing the Battlemarked demo, the feeling is of a game well polished in terms of mechanics and interface, with a friendly learning curve for those already familiar with strategy games or tabletop RPGs. It is noteworthy that the game strongly maintains the legacy of Demeo with the use of cards and turns, but now set in Forgotten Realms, which adds a special charm for fans of the D&D universe. The gameplay seems to focus on each action having weight and importance, promoting organic and tense cooperation between players who seek synergies and cover, in addition to thinking about the best strategy to survive and advance in the challenge. However, something that draws attention is the difference in the narrative tone. Battlemarked does not deliver a deep narrative or complex dialogue choices that alter the course of the story, at least not as far as the demo allows you to experience. This creates an interesting contrast with other digital adaptations of Dungeons & Dragons that explore more of the narrative RPG elements, such as Baldur's Gate 3. In Battlemarked, the narrative serves more as a backdrop for the tactical confrontation, reinforcing the idea that the main experience lies in team play and strategy during combat. Support for crossplay between VR, PC, and consoles is a smart bet that expands the potential audience and maintains the social essence of the title. The fact that the game allows matches both in VR and on a traditional screen without losing the essence of the interaction is a remarkable advance, reflecting the developer's care with usability and inclusion. The demo gives a good idea of this technological balance that the Resolution Games and Wizards team are trying to consolidate, preserving the charm of immersion and cooperation, even outside of VR. Another important issue in the context of development is how the game offers progression and challenges. The demo indicates that there is a continuous progression system where characters and campaigns advance in an integrated way, different from a roguelike with independent restarts. This goes well with the proposal of tabletop RPG games, where the group develops together, encouraging the return and continuity of adventures, creating a greater bond with the game and between the players. This design decision reaffirms the focus on the social and cooperative game aspect, valuing the collective experience. The impression is that Demeo Dungeons & Dragons Battlemarked is a solid evolution for a niche that balances strategy and socialization around digital RPG. The development context, which includes collaboration with a major brand like D&D and direct inspiration from the success and feedback of the Demeo community, demonstrates a project with care in execution and respect for fans. Although it does not offer the deep traditional narrative of D&D, it seems ideal for those who like tactical challenges in groups and want an easily accessible digital tabletop RPG to play with friends with a fair pace and high replayability potential. The narrative of Demeo Dungeons & Dragons Battlemarked unfolds in the Forgotten Realms, one of the most iconic settings in the D&D universe. The story does not focus on a single protagonist, but rather on groups of heroes who come together to face threats that endanger known locations, such as Neverwinter Wood, Cragmaw Castle, and, in a future campaign, the cold region of Icewind Dale. This choice makes it clear that the plot wants to evoke the spirit of group adventures more than tell a linear saga with great personal revelations. The campaign that is being shown the most, called embers of chaos, presents a sense of urgency and confrontation against evil forces that threaten the peace of the forests and castles. There, players need to rebuild alliances and forge their strategies to contain hordes of powerful enemies. The atmosphere is clearly one of an epic fantasy adventure where each tactical movement has weight, and the environment is an essential part of creating tension and immersion. This mix between combat and brief narrative works well to maintain the agile pace that the game intends to have. Another interesting point is the emphasis given to dragon characters such as Clarion and Bolthrax, who are an important part of the plot and the legends of the world. Clarion represents faith in justice and protection of the weak, while Bolthrax is a reformed villain who learns hard lessons about power and humility. This duality adds layers to the story and enriches the game's universe, even if the narrative is not as deep as other D&D adaptations, helping to create emotional connections during battles and dialogues. However, the story seems to make it clear that the greater focus is on the social and strategic experience between players, not on a complex narrative full of ramifications. The dialogue choices in the demo, for example, tend to impact immediate results or give slight humor to failures, but do not drastically alter the main line of the story. For those who enjoy RPGs for the saga and detailed world building, this may seem shallow, but for those looking for a group game focused on action and collaboration, it is very effective. The second campaign, Crown of Frost, promises to take players to a frozen setting in the north of the Forgotten Realms, with battles against ice giants, fierce wolves, and other frozen creatures. The Icewind Dale setting, known among fans as a place full of dangers and mysteries, brings the promise of a visually distinct adventure full of new strategies, in addition to offering survival in extreme conditions as an extra motivator of tension for the team. This demonstrates the game's ambition to offer diversity and depth of adventure, even within its more strategic format. The story of Battlemarked, therefore, is less about who you are individually and more about what your group can achieve together. Don't expect great, dramatic personal arcs or elaborate dialogue like in single-player RPGs, but rather a narrative that favors cooperation, quick and tactical choices, and that classic tabletop RPG feeling where each encounter is a small story of its own. This can be liberating for some players, as it allows them to focus on fun and challenge without getting stuck in a very complex story. Playing the demo, I realized that the story works as a backdrop that supports the battles and group decisions, with engaging characters and locations, but that don't take themselves so seriously as to lock the game's dynamics. It is a narrative experience that respects the legacy of D&D and at the same time adapts to the more casual and fast style of Demeo, offering a robust adventure focused on what many players really seek: fun and tactical challenges as a team. The gameplay system of Battlemarked is an evolution clearly designed to please both fans of the original Demeo and fans of the Dungeons & Dragons universe. The demo gives the impression of a well-balanced turn-based combat, where each action and card choice has a real strategic weight. The fact that each character has a limited hand of cards and actions per turn creates a dynamic of constant and interesting decision-making that forces you to plan not only the current turn, but to think about what might happen in the next ones. A strong point that stands out is the accessibility of the action system used. Battlemarked simplifies the complex action system of classic D&D, transforming everything into a uniform system of 2 actions per turn. This makes the game much more intuitive for those who are not used to the complex rules of traditional RPG, but without losing strategic depth. This change makes it easier for new players to enter and maintains the fluid and tense pace of the gameplay. Another thing that impresses is how the synergy between the class's cards creates moments of real cooperative strategy. The interaction between cards, such as the rogue becoming invisible to attack with greater effect, or the use of Dragon's Breath to poison enemies and then set them on fire with the wizard's spells, demonstrates the developer's care to maintain the complexity of D&D in the form of combos and group tactics. This brings a lot of satisfaction for those who like to think together, something present not only in the demo, but from what has been disclosed about the complete progression of the game. The demo has moments in which the social gameplay shines. The group decisions and dialogues with NPCs that can be influenced by skill tests add a light layer of roleplay and unpredictability, something that escapes a little from the purely strategic rigidity. Even though these parts are accessory and not deep, they give flavor and fun, creating funny or unpredictable situations, which removes excessive tension and invites more replayability and experimentation. Visually, the fluidity of the gameplay is also a strong point. The clean interface, the clear positioning of the elements, and the sophisticated presentation of the visual effects during the actions make the demo very pleasant to follow, even for those who are not fans of digital board games. The movement and animations of the cards and characters convey the feeling of playing a real tabletop RPG, but with all the advantages of a modern video game. However, the demo gave me a feeling that the difficulty is a little low at the moment, making the game accessible but perhaps not as challenging for experienced tactical RPG players. Still, this may change in the final version with difficulty options or scaled challenges, which would be a necessary addition to keep the game interesting in the long term for diverse audiences. The constant progression and unlocking of skills should increase this complexity and depth over time. In short, the gameplay of Demeo Dungeons & Dragons Battlemarked, seen through the demo and the disclosure, shows itself to be a very well-made mix between accessible, fun, and deep strategy, which values teamwork and the combination of skills within the D&D system. The gameplay has an agile pace, attractive visuals, and a card mechanic that is easy to learn but promises a lot of variety and style adjustments in the final version. For those who like tactical board games with a touch of classic RPG, it is a proposal that draws a lot of attention and seems to deliver what it promises. The graphics of Battlemarked immediately draw attention for the way they combine an aesthetic of physical miniatures with a detailed and immersive digital environment. The visual is very reminiscent of a classic RPG board, with pieces that look like minis that you could hold in your hand, only with modern effects and fluid animations. This creates a nostalgic and at the same time refreshing feeling, perfect for those who like that tabletop session atmosphere, only enhanced by the graphic power of current video games. When playing the demo, I noticed the quality of the character and enemy miniature models impresses with the richness of detail and variation. Each class has a well-defined visual style. The ranger with his bow, the silent and stealthy rogue, the powerful dragonborn, and the attack and magic animations are visually satisfying, with particles and special effects that help to understand the impact of the plays without polluting the screen. This visual clarity is essential for a tactical game where position and movement are fundamental. The scenery and digital board are also a highlight. The environment has beautiful textures and lighting that adds depth and atmosphere. Referring to the fantastic locations of Dungeons and Dragons, the setting of embers of chaos with forests, castles, and caves translates very well into an interesting aesthetic that does not try to be photorealistic, but rather stylized in a charming and functional way, which helps to keep the focus on the gameplay without losing the visual identity. Another positive feature is the freedom with which the player can move the camera around the table, being able to vary angles to appreciate the miniatures or better plan the movements. This not only reinforces the immersion, but also brings a feeling of being truly inside that adventure, being able to observe details that would normally go unnoticed in more linear games or with a fixed camera. The presence of this resource is a differential for those who play in VR as well as on PC. However, a point that caught my attention in the demo was that the visual style, even beautiful, is intentionally simplified. Don't expect ultra-realistic textures or hyper-detailed models in the standard of large AAA games. The proposal is precisely a balance between charm, clarity, and performance. For those who are fans of tactical RPG with a more traditional visual, this may be positive, but for those looking for more elaborate and cinematic graphics, it may seem a little modest. Another interesting aspect is how the interface and visual elements of the card fit perfectly into the graphic set of the game. The transition between the board, the cards, and the actions is visually harmonious, with effects that clearly indicate what is happening without creating confusion. This makes the flow of the match more pleasant and allows even new players to quickly understand what is at stake each turn. The graphics deliver an artistic visual that fits perfectly with the game's proposal. a social tactical RPG that refers to sessions of physical miniatures on the table, only digitally amplified. The attention to detail in the miniatures, the charming stylization of the scenery, and the visual clarity of the interface are high points that provide an immersive experience, even if it is not the most technically advanced. For those who value functional aesthetics and style, it is a pleasant surprise. The performance of Battlemarked impresses, with its fluidity even on varied systems, from traditional PCs to VR devices, which demonstrates a solid optimization work by Resolution Games. During the demo, there were no noticeable crashes or frame rate drops, and the game maintained the response of the actions always within a comfortable standard, something essential for a tactical and cooperative title where the precision of timing can make the difference. Something that caught my attention is how the game balances detailed graphics and animations with good performance without asking for absurdly powerful hardware. Even in environments loaded with several enemies, magic effects, and simultaneous movements, the performance remains stable, which reinforces that the game should run well on a good range of PCs and recent consoles. And this is important to ensure that the experience does not become frustrating due to lags or drops, especially in multiplayer matches. The demo also showed that the VR version works without many performance problems with an adequate refresh rate, which is a critical point to avoid nausea and discomfort. The transition between the VR platform and the traditional modes seems well adjusted, which gives a great sense of accessibility for those who want to play both in a headset and on the conventional screen. This flexibility, without compromising performance, is something that deserves to be highlighted for the technical execution. However, I noticed that some more advanced customization options, such as button remapping and camera adjustments, were not yet present in the demo, which could impact the user experience in terms of comfort and control. This does not necessarily affect performance, but it is something that may be missing for more demanding players who seek greater configuration freedom to optimize their gameplay. Another personal impression is that the performance is clearly designed to ensure that the focus remains on the strategy, and the social, avoiding technical distraction. The game does not propose to be a visually heavy AAA, and perhaps that is why everything runs smoothly, maintaining what is essential for the proposal: a fast, fluid digital tabletop RPG without technical interruptions that could break the rhythm of cooperative sessions. The online cooperative multiplayer also worked well during the demo tests, without delays or synchronization problems that hinder the coordination between the players. For a game like this, in which communication and response time are crucial, having a stable network with good performance is fundamental. It seems that the developers invested well in this aspect to offer a satisfactory experience for everyone regardless of the platform. Considering everything that has been disclosed and my experience with the demo, it is worth buying Demeo Dungeons & Dragons Battlemarked at launch if you really enjoy tactical RPG games in groups and have a group of friends to play together, whether in person or online. The demo already shows that the game delivers a solid and fun experience, with good gameplay, cooperation, and challenges. So for those looking for something light and strategic to play as a team, the launch can be a great time to enter and enjoy fresh content. On the other hand, if you are a more demanding player in terms of challenge or are looking for a deep narrative with great arcs and complexity, it may be worth waiting some time to see how the game evolves after launch, with possible updates and expansions that increase the variety and depth of the gameplay, and possible improvements in balance and narrative content. The game is highly recommended for Dungeons & Dragons fans who like the more strategic and tactical side of RPG, who appreciate turn-based combat, synergies between characters, and team building. For these players, Battlemarked delivers a familiar environment with the charm of miniatures and the board, enhanced with good graphics and modern effects, and an accessible system that does not require deep knowledge of traditional rules. It is also for people who enjoy digital board games, with a focus on socialization and quick sessions that do not take hours to complete. If you like to play with friends casually, making quick decisions and seeing the tactical consequences of each step, the game clearly fits this proposal of uncomplicated and at the same time satisfying fun. For players who like more solo experiences or who prefer deep narratives and detailed roleplay, Battlemarked may not be as suitable at launch as its strength lies in cooperation and pure strategy, and less in a complex plot or deep customization. The demo shows a game that prioritizes action and immediate tactical decisions, not the construction of long-lived characters or stories full of ramifications. It is also worth considering the factor of access to the community and platforms, as the game offers crossplay and is interesting for those who have access to VR and PC. Being able to alternate between these platforms, which increases the social potential and practicality. And if you are interested in taking advantage of this from the start, the launch is the time. Demeo Dungeons & Dragons Battlemarked is worth it at launch if you like social tactical RPG, have a group to play with, and appreciate dynamic and strategic gameplay sessions, but those who expect a deep narrative, RPG, or great challenges may want to wait for future updates. The demo already shows a solid and fun product, and for the right audience, it is a game that delivers a lot from the beginning.